Morning. So today we're going to talk about something that should be very familiar to most of you, even though you may not know the name of it. You know exactly what it is. We're going to talk about capitalism and free enterprise. So the term capitalism is based on the idea that people have the right to take their property and invest it any way they like and enjoy the profits of this property. They can take their skills and they can work where they like in order to gain a profit. So free enterprise is the idea that business transactions take place freely and that businesses are free to make a profit based on the way those businesses are run and the products that they are selling. Now, there's a great deal of freedom involved with capitalism and free enterprise, but there's also a little bit of accountability. So let's talk a little bit about the central tenets of the American system. In the American system, we enjoy a great deal of freedom, specifically property rights. In some systems, such as the old Soviet Union, the government controlled everything, and the means of production were not in the hands of private citizens. The means of production it was in the hands of the government. And the government essentially owned everything major. There were no property rights under this system, and it was very inefficient because it lacked a lot of the freedoms, and it also lacked something that's very important, the profit motive, which we'll get to in a second. So philosophers argue that capitalism and free enterprise is very, very natural, and this is man operating in his most natural state, that is, trying to better his situation through the sale of his property and the use of his own personal talents, and that government interference inherently interferes with people interacting in their most natural way. So let's talk about some of the unique features of capitalism. One, the use of markets. Two, economic freedom. Three, property rights. Four, competition. Five, the profit motive. And six, voluntary exchange. So I explained this to you guys earlier. When we're talking about the marketplace, when we're talking about theoretical economics, we're not talking about a physical place, although, of course, there are physical markets where you can go and purchase things, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about theoretical economics. So the idea of market in terms of economics is a place where products, goods, and services are bought and sold. So the people who buy these products are referred to as consumers. We are consumers. We're the people that use products. And consumers have a great deal of say in what items are being produced by manufacturers. This idea is called consumer sovereignty. Now let's look at typewriters. That's the example I used on the slideshow. I don't know about you, but I haven't seen a typewriter for sale in a long, long time. You guys are young. You may have never seen one for sale. Now, why is that the case? Well, people don't buy them anymore. We buy computers. Since we buy computers, we've told companies that formerly made typewriters to stop making typewriters and start making computers. That's the idea of consumer sovereignty. Another example is your smartphones. When was the last time you saw someone voluntarily buy a flip phone? It doesn't happen often. It does happen, not very often. And most of the phones available are smartphones. Why? Because there's a greater demand for smartphones than there are for flip phones. So this has told producers to make smartphones rather than the flip phone. Okay, now economic freedom means that consumers and businesses have the ability to do what they like with their resources and capital. In the United States, you're free to work wherever you want and work any job at which you're qualified to do. We are also free to open your own business. Now, with this freedom, as I mentioned earlier, there comes accountability. If you open a store and that store does not make a profit, you're going to go out of business. If it does make a profit, well, then you're happy. You've created your own job. And you get the benefits of this well-functioning business. So under a capitalist system, you take the risks of opening your own business. It's called an enterprise. But you also are the one that gets punished if it does not succeed. You're the one that gets saddled with the debt that is often incurred by businesses that fail. So in the United States, we have property rights. This is one of the most important aspects of the American system. You have the freedom to use your property in any which way you desire. Now, you have to do it in accordance with the law. You can't just do whatever you want on your property. But as long as you operate within the confines of the law, you can do with your property what you like. Competition. Competition is very beneficial for consumers. So if you have Jim Bob, who's selling candy, and he's the only one you can buy candy from, he's going to charge you an exorbitant price. That's because he's got what's called a monopoly. And let's say that 3 rows over from Jim Bob, Billy Bob starts selling candy. Well, Jim Bob and Billy Bob are now competing for your money. So they're going to charge less because if you don't buy from Billy Bob, you can go to Jim Bob and vice versa. So when you go and you purchase a new car, for instance, auto manufacturers are competing against one another for your money. And they are going to produce better product, better cars, and they're going to charge less. Because if they're selling you an inferior product, you're not going to buy their car, you're going to go to somebody else. And if they're charging you too much, well, you're not going to give them your business. You're going to go to buy another make of car or to another vendor. So competition also rewards producers who are very efficient because the American capitalist system is what we call dog eat dog. It's survival of the fittest. So companies who do not operate efficiently end up going out of business, while the companies who do operate efficiently survive and flourish. Okay, so let's talk about the profit motive. Under the old communist system, as I mentioned earlier, the government drew innovation. There really was no profit motive. There was no profit to be made. So because of this, people living in the old Soviet Union did not get access to the same products that we enjoy here in the West. So in a free market capitalist system, you have several different companies that are competing for your money. Let's talk about Apple and the iPhone. Now, Apple did not create the iPhone to be nice to you. They created the iPhone to make money. So the profit motive drives innovation. Why is that? Because you have several different companies competing for money. And they are going to drive innovation. They're going to produce better products because they want your money. All right, so let's talk about voluntary exchange now. You do this every day. When you go to the convenience store and buy a candy bar, you give them $1 for a Snickers bar. Well, you would rather have the candy bar, they would rather have the dollar. So theoretically, this is a win-win situation. It's a voluntary exchange, and that is what market economics is based on. One person would rather have the good or service, the other person would rather have the money. And the millions of transactions just like this is what fuels our economy every single day. So let's talk about the history of capitalism. So in 1776, a Scottish philosopher and economist named Adam Smith published a book called The Wealth of Nations. And Adam Smith believed that capitalism was man in his natural state, and that people would be a lot better off without government interference because everybody is operating in their own self-interest. He called this the invisible hand of the marketplace. So if person A, it's in his own best interest to buy a new computer, then he will do so. If it's in company A's best interest to sell person A this computer at the price they're advertising, then they will do so. It's in their own best interest. So Adam Smith argued that government interference is actually bad for the growth of an economic system, and that people operating in their own self-interest if people did that, there would be no need for government interference of any kind. So this formed the basis of an idea called laissez-faire economics. Laissez-faire economics literally means in French to let alone. This is the idea that the government interferes in the marketplace as little as possible and that people have the freedom to do what they want with their money and work where they want, and the government stays out. Under laissez-faire economics, people believe that the economy is much better served by the laws of supply and demand. I'll talk briefly about the law of demand, which is pretty simple. When you go to a store in the mall and you see the discount rack, why are things on the discount rack? Because they can't sell them. So because there's not much demand for that, it lowers the price. Conversely, if there's a large demand for something, the price is raised. Here we have the marketplace regulating itself. There's no need for the government to step in and tell the store how much they're going to charge for said item, which is what happens under what's called a command economy, which you guys will learn about a little bit later on. So here we have our friend Adam Smith. You can see by the fashions he's wearing that he lived about the time of the founding of our country. And his writings were very, very influential upon the founding fathers of the United States. And his ideas very much formed the basis of the economic system that we have here in the United States today. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a wonderful day.